Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Meet Your Future event today. My name is Michelle Wheeler, and I'm part of the Bridge GM team, Greater Manchester Combined Authority. Today's event is part of our focus on women in engineering. You can find out more about our events this week at www.gmax.co.uk, which is your one-stop shop for information on courses, jobs, and careers in Greater Manchester. Meet Your Future was launched in April 2019, back before the lockdown, to enable more young people like you to meet with and have meaningful conversations with employers while you can experience different workplaces. Over the past 12 months, we've been speaking with young people from all 10 local authorities in Greater Manchester to find out how you feel you should be supported now and into your future. We developed quite a suite of information and resources and services that are there to help you, and this can be found on GMAX, which hopefully many of you will already be familiar with. Please speak to your teacher to find out more if you haven't used GMAX before. We've also adapted our Meet Your Future events to better fit what you've been telling us. Throughout this academic year, you've been able to join sessions and chat with Greater Manchester and national and international employers about our growth sectors and all the different pathways and careers opportunities that will be available to you in the future right here in Greater Manchester. So in this session, you're going to hear from female engineers from Amey, from BAM Nuttall, and from ARUP. We've got Wanda Simpson, Rebecca Morrison, Phyllis Owen, and Grace Baird to talk about their experiences working on this massive project for the North, the Transpennine Route Upgrade. Throughout the session, as ever, you can make use of the question box, and we will cover these at the end. We want to have a good conversation between the panel. If you'd like to use captions or subtitles during the event, please select captions and subtitles on in your video controls. I'm now going to pass over to Wanda to start today's session.
Hello, everyone. I'm Wanda Simpson, and I'm going to start this session today. I'm just waiting for the slides to come up. There you go. So yeah, we're women in civil engineering, working on the Transpennine Route Upgrade West of Leeds. And I'm going to just go through what we're going to discuss on our slides today before we go into the Q&A. So we're going to have a short summary on what TRU is, the Transpennine Route Upgrade, and potential opportunities for young people. And then we're going to talk about ourselves a little bit from each of the four panelists, myself, Linos, and Grace and Rebecca, before we go into the Q&A session.
Thanks, Wanda. I guess I'll start just by explaining to you guys what TRU is before we go in to explain what our jobs are. So the TRU stands for the Transpennine Route Upgrade, and this massive project is here to try and improve the infrastructure of the railway between Manchester, Victoria, through Huddersfield, through Leeds, and all the way to York. So this train line is the quickest way to get from Manchester to York, and we just want to make it that much better. All the lines you can see on the screen, that's the current railway system in the north of England. And all those dots are all the stations along the way. And all of us here on this call today, we're all working on the western side of this project, which is Manchester to Leeds. Just move on to the next slide. What I wanted to cover today was just the idea that a whole load of experts have come together to create this project. We've got experts from structural engineering, we need track engineers and railway engineers, signalling and the telecoms that goes into moving the trains around the railway. But we're not only looking for engineers on this project, we need massive lot of project managers, we need planners and programmers, we need financial people, we need social value experts. And there's all sorts of people that need to come together to create a project like this. So these companies that you can see on the screen are just some of the ones that are involved in our project. So we've got BAM Nuttall, Siemens, Amey Consulting, Keltbray, Coe, Network Rail, Amey, Tony G, ARUP and Atkins. and we're all specialists in different things. Not one person or not one company can be an expert in everything, and it goes the same as for people in their careers. So we need all those different types of people to come together to make something like this a success. So once we've finished working in the north of England, you'll have faster, you'll have more sustainable train journeys, hopefully ones that run on time, more trains to pick from, and better stations along the routes. If we move on to the next slide. So we'll be here in the north of England for the next 10 years, and we'll be busy working in the Manchester and Leeds area. So if anyone is out there living in this area or interested in living in this area or working in this area, we're open to employ. We need a lot of people to make this project a success. So I'll just cover it a little bit. We do a lot of work experience, and not only in engineering, but we do an awful lot of it in engineering. We're looking for work experience in roles such as digital construction as well, modelling, accounting, the financial side, surveying, and many more. And last year we provided 605 days worth of work experience to young people. Moving on to apprenticeships. Apprenticeships is a route into engineering that means you're learning on the job. You might not fancy going to college or university and studying the conventional way, you might say. Apprentices, they learn by working and earning money. And last year we employed 38 apprentices. We'd also take graduates. So if you do decide to take a degree into engineering or any of these jobs that we offer, we also employ graduates straight from university or maybe after the break. And last year we employed 24 graduates straight from university. Just on the right hand side there, I've just given you 3 photos, just an idea of different skills of different people that come together to create something amazing. So the top one is a programme written by the programmer. Moving on then to a 3D modeller who's put a model together of what we're planning to build. And then the third photo is our team on site actually delivering the project. And all those people are from different backgrounds, different skill set, and they all come together to make this happen. So I'll pass you back to Wanda, and then we'll go through what our jobs are within this big project. I think you're on mute, Wanda.
That always annoys me myself. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I'm Wanda Simpson. I'm a principal civil engineer, and I'm a TRU Lineside Civil CRE, contractors responsible engineer for design, and I work for Amey Consulting. Next slide, please. So a little bit about me. I originally from Germany and was born in Berlin, but I've been living and working in the UK since 2006. I went to school in Berlin from when I was 7 till I was 19, and then after that went to university for a bachelor degree studying European Civil Engineering Management at the Oldenburg Fachhochschule, which is a polytechnic university. But I also did 1.5 years exchange as part of my degree at Wolverhampton University. I'm also a member of the Institute of Civil Engineers since 2013 as an corporate engineers. So my hobbies, what I like to do outside work, is roller skating, hiking, walking, so being active. Also like traveling, so going away, going abroad and going to concerts and festivals. But I also on my quiet time like to do some knitting and baking. Next slide, please. Oh, you went past my slide. Sorry. Thank you, Michelle. So my career, so I graduated in 2005 and I worked for a contractor as my first job. So I started off as a site engineer and then moved up to section engineer. And my most prestige project during that time was the construction of the Nottingham Station Bridge, which you can see in the photo. So I was working with the contractor from 2006 to 2013, and I built beside the bridge. I built recycling plants and was involved in flood alleviation schemes. While building the bridge, I decided to have a change of my career, which was also the time after I had my first child, and I moved to consulting, specifically working on rail engineering project, which I've been doing ever since. So working on station design, platform extension and new build, but also landside civils works, including drainage design, as I'm doing on TRU, which I've been on since 2019, and I've worked, as I said, as a landside CRE. Throughout on TRU, I've worked on design deliveries from Manchester, Victoria to Stalybridge, and even though myself and my team work remotely to Manchester and the Derby office, we have made our contribution to TRU by delivering 65 submissions just in last year. Thank you. Over to Grace.
Thanks, Wanda. And wow, I can't believe you guys submitted that many submissions. I'm sure if we were to count how many submissions my team have worked on, it would be about the same. But thanks. My name is Grace Baird. I'm a principal overhead line equipment engineer, and I work with ARUP. So a little bit about me. You can go to the next slide, thanks. As you could probably tell, I'm not from around here. I'm originally from New York City, and that's where I studied civil engineering. In America, it's a 4-year degree from 18 to 22 years of age. And after working in New York for about 7 years, in overhead line equipment engineering, I was recruited to come work in England. And I could also pause just for a moment to explain what overhead line equipment engineering is. Basically, if you take the train at Manchester Station, you'll notice there are overhead wires that power the trains. I design the structures that support those wires and make sure that the wires are safe and don't interact with the public. So it's a bit of a niche field within rail engineering, and it's what allowed me to move from New York to England. So originally, when I moved to England, I moved up north. I moved to New York to Old York. And now I live in Bristol. And like Wanda, because of the remote working, I'm able to work in Bristol for this project up in Manchester. As far as a little bit more about me, I've got a couple of random hobbies like singing in a barbershop quartet and competing in Rubik's Cube competitions. My best time is about 37 seconds with 3x3. And I haven't done a competition since moving to England, but I used to do them occasionally in America. And I have 2 young daughters who I make sure know that they can become whatever they want to be, including engineers. Next slide, please. So as far as what I've been able to do in my career, which has been going on, I guess, for 14, 15 years now. In America, I worked on a ton of tram projects. That just is the nature of the work in America. At the time that I was there was a lot of federal money that was available for different cities to build new streetcar projects. So one of the coolest things about being an engineer in general, but being a rail engineer, is you get to ride your projects, like you get to ride on your projects. So that's me in front of the Cincinnati streetcar, which was my first project that I worked on right out of uni. And I haven't yet ridden on the Atlanta, Detroit, or Seattle or Charlotte streetcars, but when I travel there, I can ride on them and look at the different structures that I helped design, or think about a problem that I helped solve, and it's a really cool feeling to be able to do that. So as I mentioned, after working in America for about 7 years, I was recruited to work in England because of my skills as an OLE engineer being in high demand, you know, for projects such as TRU, as well as this other project that I worked on in Cardiff called the Greater West Project, which electrified from London to Cardiff. It's okay. So yeah, that's me in front of some structures that I designed in Cardiff as well. So you can see it makes me very happy to do this work, but then also to see it after it's been built. So yeah, for anyone that is considering a career in engineering, it's very rewarding, and there's lots of different disciplines that you can join. Basically, anyone that likes to problem solve can be an engineer. Thanks.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Rebecca Morrison, and I'm a geotechnical engineer and the geotech design lead and deputy CRE for Amey Consulting. Next slide, please. So yeah, just a little bit about me. Yeah, likewise, I'm not from around here. I'm from Northern Ireland originally. I was born, grew up near Belfast. I went to school in a town in Northern Ireland and completed my A-levels there. After A-levels, I decided to go and study geology at the University of Manchester. And then after that, took a year out, sort of did a bit of research as to what I wanted to go into, and decided to go and study for a master's in engineering at the University of Leeds. I've been a fellow of the Geological Society of London since 2014, and it's through this organisation that I'm working towards chartered status. Hobbies, sadly nothing very interesting for me. Like everyone else, traveling, socialising with my friends. I decided to take up embroidery during lockdown. So now my family and friends get tote bags, whether they want them or not. And I also do DIY, although that's a chore and not a hobby because I'm renovating my house. Next slide, please. So yeah, just onto my career. So after I finished my MSc in Leeds, I joined Amey in 2016 on the graduate development programme, and I'm currently based in the Manchester geotechnical team. So my first ever project was the Northwest Electrification Project, which also known as MWEP, which is essentially the precursor to TRU. So yeah, I've been looking at the same section of track for going on 6 years now. My most notable project during NWEP was actually some trackbed stabilisation works we did in Ash and Moss. As part of that, we actually installed 842 micropiles to stabilise the track over a 300-metre section. And just to give a bit of context actually to what we do as geotechnical engineers, geotech's basically a branch of civils combined with geology. So we use non-intrusive desk-based approaches and intrusive groundwork such as boreholes to characterise ground conditions, and that allows us to design for various structures, foundations, retaining walls, and so on. After MWEP, I was involved in the highway sector. I worked in two major smart motorway schemes. So one was the M1 13 to 16, and then a bit closer to home, M56 junction 6 to 8, which is currently in the construction stages. So since 2019, I've been working on TRU as Amey's geotechnical design lead. My role really is to just design, sort of mentor junior staff members to deliver various packages of design. A key bit is to really integrate with other disciplines, so people such as Wanda, Grace, to help deliver necessary foundation and retention solutions for those packs as well. And in recognition of our work, and particularly the collaboration across the project, the TRU West of Leeds geotech team was actually awarded UK Geotechnical Team of the Year last year at the 2021 Ground Engineering Awards.
Hi, thanks, Rebecca. So my name is Llynos Owen, and I'm a civil engineering agent. I work for BAM Nuttall. So my job is site-based, a little bit different to what you've heard already. Following my degree, I went into actually working on the construction site, and I'm still there now. Just a little bit about me. I'm originally from North Wales, so maybe the closest one to Manchester. I didn't think I would be the most local. My work as a site engineer has taken me all over the UK, over to Liverpool, Manchester, London, and then I decided to move my career over to New Zealand. I went to University of Liverpool, and that's where I studied civil and structural engineering, which was a 4-year full-time study degree and masters. I decided at that point that I wanted to be a designer and not a construction engineer. So every summer between my study, I would pick a construction site, ask for a job and work there all summer. My idea was that I would, following my degree, go into design because I wanted to design bridges. As a kid, that's what I wanted to do. Anyway, after being on site every summer, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with being part of a big team that worked towards something physically coming out the ground. I fell in love with being outdoors and all the problem solving that would be thrown at me every day. And that's where I stayed. But again, I'm a member of the Institute of Civil Engineers. As engineers, we all take our jobs really seriously. We have a big responsibility in the world. So I'm also an incorporated engineer. Just some of my hobbies, very similar to everyone. I've been hiking around the world. I love attending sports events. That's a photo of me and my friends in Eden Park in Auckland, watching the All Blacks and Tonga. I love going to music events. I went to see Elton John last weekend. Also, I'm a jewellery maker, so in my spare time, I work in my little workshop doing jewellery, and all this while also being an engineer. So a little bit about my career. Since joining the same company that I work for now, BAM Nuttall, in 2015, I've built a deep water container terminal over in Liverpool, moved on to Manchester to build a new viaduct, moved to London to dabble in a little bit of design of temporary works which help the permanent works be built safely. I then decided I've had enough for the UK, and I think I'm ready to move abroad. And this is one of the reasons why I love being an engineer, is that we are needed across the world. I moved to New Zealand, not because of the engineering, it was because I wanted to move to New Zealand. But luckily, yes, they need things built there. So I moved there to be a project engineer on a new busway and motorway improvement scheme. That's the photo you can see on the bottom right hand side. It's a lot of roads everywhere and most of them are new. We were trying to move the traffic better around Auckland. I stayed there for 2 years, enjoyed the nice weather, enjoyed working in the sunshine, and over there they take work-life balance very serious and everyone goes swimming after work in the afternoon. For some reason I'm back in the UK, probably because I have an amazing family here and BAM Nuttall were calling for me to come back, and I rejoined them, and now that's where I am working on TRU, improving the railway. So my job, I look at all the bridges and all the structural engineering side of things on a site-based role. So I work on site in my orange PPE, making sure that we build things properly. My job is to manage those site activities. I ensure everyone on site knows what they're doing and how they're going to do it. I'm the one that ensures everything is done safely, it's done correctly, on time, and also not overspending. So as a civils agent, that is my role. I'm the one that you might see standing behind some weird looking tripods out on site, but I'm there to manage that site and to make sure that everything is done right. But what I love about my job is being outdoors, being part of this incredible team that are all working towards something together. And I plan on spending the rest of my career in this industry. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Really enjoyable set of. Oh, sorry, I've done the wrong thing there, haven't I? Really enjoyable set of presentations, and I'd like to ask people that are on the call listening in to pop your questions in the Q&A box. We've got a bit of time now, obviously, for a discussion. I'm going to kick off. I've got various questions. So let me just start. Let me try and take off this presentation so that we can see people's faces. So Wanda, I wonder if I can start with you. For some reason that's not working. I can just see Glynos. Maybe I'll start with you, Glynos. Actually, I did want to ask. You've all mentioned that you can work remotely, and there's international travel involved, depending on your sort of different skills. Can I ask? You've mentioned at the start that you wanted to build bridges when you were younger. Did you always envision that kind of international travel would be a part of it? Was that important to you in kind of working in an industry like civil engineering, or is that just kind of a perk that people have as generally in your industry?
I think for me, knowing that my job that I was going into, even when I was 18, would have the potential to take me around the world was definitely part of my choice. I had decided from a young age I wanted to make a difference in the world in terms of that physical built environment. And my idea, and it's still my plan, is to try and use my skills in developing countries that need water, clean water, new schools, new buildings. And it was one of the reasons why I wanted to be an engineer. And right. Just that knowing that engineers are needed everywhere in the world was such a exciting idea when I was 18.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. Wanda, can I come to you next? My question for you is, you've all shared obviously about how you've come to your current roles. Do you think that you, and for the places you've worked, that you think that those sort of journeys are typical? Like you've all talked about basically university careers. I know, Glynos, at the start you mentioned that apprenticeships and work experience are really valid and valuable routes, but all of you that are kind of fairly senior right now, you've come from a kind of a degree background. Do you think that's fairly typical?
It is probably for our age when we were there. I think apprenticeships weren't as available at the time. It's something probably the last 5-10 years which really kicked off to give that opportunities, and I work with apprentices. We've got one obviously working with us on TRU right now, and it is such a better opportunity. Working, we supported another of our who's now a civil engineer. He started with a day release through working to go to university and get his degree, and it just really wasn't an option when I was younger. If you wanted to become an engineer, you had to go to university to achieve that in a traditional way.
Yeah. So do you think that it's more there's more variety now? There's more kind of openness to people going to different routes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I'll leave it with you because we've had an interesting question come through, anonymous. But were you all strong in maths and sciences? Is that something that's really important? I'm going to come to each of you in turn, but wonder if you can answer that first.
I probably was. I was a geek. I was good at problem solving. I wasn't the best in math. I was good at it, but it wasn't the strongest. But I like the physics of things. But I think probably my strongest part is problem solving and just dealing with things as they come up and thinking of new ways of doing something. I think that was probably my strong part. Yes, I was all right in maths, but I wasn't the best in the class for sure.
So the skill is around problem solving and kind of creative thinking as well, as much as you're kind of technical.
Yeah, I was very good in art. Yeah, my art teacher was always very impressed with what I was coming up with. So.
Rebecca, can I come to you next? You've obviously mentioned you're a geologist by trade, so is that a kind of maths and sciencey type emphasis?
Probably not as much emphasis as if you went into just a straight engineering degree. I did do a lot of maths and science anyway, because geology wasn't actually my first. I studied optometry first, so I wanted to be an optician. So I kind of curveballed through my degrees at university and then finally settled on geology. But a bit like Wanda, I was probably a bit of a nerd at school anyway. I enjoy maths anyway, so it's certainly an advantage. And
is that what you see from your colleagues as well, sort of working you know, in the geotechnical team? You know, you've got people that have got different backgrounds, but
yeah,
sort
because
of strengths. Yeah,
we've probably got a 50-50 mix of people who have either come through the geology followed by an engineer master's, or those who have just come from a straight like civils background. So because we have that mix anyway, you know, everyone has strengths and weaknesses. So we tend to just lean on, you know, the rest of the team to support in that sense.
fab. Thank you. Grace, can I come to you next with the same question? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not sure
absolutely.
about Rubik's cubes. If you need to be good at maths to do that, or maybe just
You
quick
definitely
fingers.
don't. You
Yeah.
just need to be able to memorize like patterns and colors. But I like Wanda and Rebecca did enjoy doing math at school. I will say though that, you know, when you're at a university degree or even just studying maths in the lower schools, you study a very wide range of math topics. And in reality, in your day-to-day job, the math that I do is actually quite simple. So really for me, it is more about problem solving and creative thinking than anything else. And, you know, like I use a calculator, I can't do it in my head. You know, so I would say like the emphasis on math and science is important, but it's not the end of the world if it's not your strength, you know?
Definitely, I think that's a great point. That, you know, the tools exist. Like you're not doing it in your
Totally.
head. That's
There was a
great.
time when I like wanted to try and show off and would try and do it in my head, and
Yeah.
I gave up.
Okay, finally, let's come to you, Thomas, with the same question about maths and science, if you don't mind.
I guess for me, maths only makes sense when there's a problem to solve and there's a reason why I'm doing that maths. That's when I found my strengths come through in maths. So when I was studying mechanical maths, I started realizing, oh, well, if we're talking about the speed that something's moving on or something like that, then all of a sudden it all made sense. But I also thought I wanted to be a doctor when I was younger. So I was thinking that my biology and chemistry would be better, but no, my physics was stronger. So yeah, for me, physics and like the mechanics of maths were my strong points at school, and then that's what made picking that degree a little bit easier.
Fair enough. Great, thank you. I'll move on to another question now, but I'll stick with you, Thomas, if that's okay. Which is how, I mean, you've talked about this. You talked about, you know, as a youngster, you went to sites in your summer holidays and stuff. But how do you gain the experience that you need if you don't have the connections or the chance to get those experiences? What advice would you have for people looking to get into the industry?
Well, my first job was a little funny how I decided to get it. I just saw a construction site because I didn't have any connections. So I saw this construction site and I just sort of walked on. Didn't know at the time that was a really unsafe thing to do. And their gateman must have been sleeping, but I just walked on. I had white Converses on and I asked to see the manager. And yeah, well, I think they just said, well, we can offer you some free work experience, which I took. And then that evolved then into a paid summer job. But I'd recommend trying to just look at where you're living, what's going on in the area, because there's construction going on everywhere. And at the minute, they're always open to young people being interested in the industry, and it worked for me. From that job, I guess I started to make connections because the industry is quite a small one once you know some people. I was also looking out for adverts and things online. So my second job was an engineer at a festival, and that was just through an advert I'd seen on, I think it was on Facebook, because I don't think I had LinkedIn, which is a good tool. But yeah, just an advert, and I applied through that. But yeah, there's not any, you know, there are some companies that are much more open than others, but I would try what's going on in your local area.
That's good, and I think you can always ask your teachers to see if they know any. They can build up connections with local employers, or people that are working on local sites. I think you've got to ask, haven't you? You've got to start somewhere, so you might as well ask. Has anybody else got an answer around that, about kind of that experience? I'll see if anyone's kind of waving their hands in the. Do you think so?
I can add one more thing.
Please do. Grace. Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to add, attending webinars like this and getting in touch with the moderator or the organization that is putting it together is another great way to just become a bit more connected to people in the industry, because I can guarantee that if you were to email any of us, we would gladly help you and point you in the right direction.
There's a couple of questions on that from current students saying, are you open to mentoring civil engineering students, and how that would work? Okay.
Absolutely. I think it would depend on, the location, what the student is looking to get out of a mentorship and the timing. But it's one of those things where, like, if someone were to approach me about whether I could mentor them, I would either say yes, or if I wasn't able to for whatever reason, I would find somebody that could, So if you were to contact me or anyone about mentorship, we would find somebody for you, I'm sure.
Fantastic. Can I ask then another question that's come through, and I'll stick with you, Grace, for the moment. I'm a civil engineering student at the moment. I'm wondering if you have mentors when you were at uni. If yes, what would you say was the best advice or direction that they gave you?
Great question. Great question. I've had various mentors throughout my career. I would say probably while I was at uni, I didn't necessarily have a specific mentor, but I did take opportunities as they were presented to me. So the reason why I started with my first company, Parsons Brinkerhoff, is because my alumni network had a career fair. I attended that, and I met, someone who used to go to my university, who now worked at Parsons Brinkerhoff, and they were looking for interns. So, I would say if you don't have a mentor, that seeking out those types of either events or activities, or just like talking to a teacher or a professor that you enjoy and, respect their opinions on things, that is a great way to just have like an informal mentorship conversation.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic, thank you.
Can I add to
any
that?
of the other speakers? Yes, please, Wanda.
Yeah, for me, again, I also know mentor, but yeah, opportunities as they arise. But also, I had a very good study group. So me and 4 others sort of came as a study group. We got really close. We helped each other with exams, studying together and get us motivated together. And also, obviously, it was helpful to see how they maybe got some a placement or a work placement or anything like this. And as I studied in the UK, after Germany, 2 of them, we all went together to the UK, and it was really helpful to just have these people, and we all like supporting us and looking after us, and if we had problems to go through it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yes, that's obviously great advice, and good to have a peer network. Rebecca or anyone else, do you want to jump in on that?
No, my experience is similar to what Wanda and Grace have said. I didn't really have a specific. I mean, we had mentors at university, but it was more from a pastoral side of things. But yeah, similar to these guys, just going to careers fairs, and it tends to be as well, if you do speak to lecturers, professors, they tend to have a lot of industry contacts and links because they've maybe worked there themselves. So, reach out to teachers, lecturers, whoever it may be, because more often than not, they're going to be able to point you in the right direction or give you a steer of what job options are out there as well.
Absolutely. Can I move on to a question about specifically being women in civil engineering? Do you find that the places you've worked have been welcoming of women, or are kind of inclusive places? I've realised you all work for kind of fairly big companies, so it might be a bit different, different experiences. But yeah, can you talk about how it's, your experiences as women? Rebecca, if you want to go first.
I was going to say, who's going to jump in first? Yeah, I mean, certainly Amey has been very welcoming to any women in engineering. I mean, for me, there's been a massive shift even in the last 6 years I've worked there. When I first joined the geotechnical team, I was actually the only female in a team of 12, whereas today there's more women than there are men in our team. So there has been a massive shift.
That's awesome.
In that dynamic. Yeah.
Who else would like to?
I can
chip in?
add
Yeah.
from my perspective. So the OLE industry is really, really small, and there are very few women that work in it internationally. I know this because when I worked in New York, I was the only woman for miles. But the company that I worked for, Parsons Brinkerhoff at the time, was really welcoming. You know, never got in the way of me doing any of the opportunities that I wanted to do. And, you know, I felt supported and respected. And I have at all the other companies that I've worked at, particularly at ARUP as well. And it's the kind of thing where if I didn't, you know, I know that that's not okay, and that I would find another company that did respect me and I felt comfortable and safe at. So thankfully that has not been my experience. I will say, however, that the industry in general, rail in particular, is very male dominated. It's just the nature of working on the rails. And that at times can be challenging. However, finding that company that really supports and respects women, and, you know, it's the kind of thing where, like, if I went to a meeting and I knew I was going to be the only woman in the room, perhaps I would bring along a colleague that I knew could be, you know, backup. Just someone that, like, I could have next to me, even if they didn't say anything at all. It's just like, I know I've got someone in the room that, like, has my back. And I've never been in a situation where I felt uncomfortable, but just, you know, working in a company that provides that level of support is great. And ARUP is definitely one of those places.
Fantastic, thank you. Kunos, can I ask you the same question, given that you work on site?
Yeah, I feel like I've been very lucky that I've had support from the very, very beginning. I've never felt uncomfortable, even though, as the others are mentioning, sometimes, yeah, you are the only female. That is definitely changing. So yeah, I've gone from being the only girl on a construction site to a team that I was looking around the other day and I thought all 6 of us are women, which is great. And there is a big shift. One thing we're really looking into and really pushing is just slightly better female welfare facilities on a construction site. So that's a little bit still in the development, but we're getting there. And with this shift now, it's just becoming second nature to the people setting up a construction site, even though they might not have a female helping them set up the site. It's becoming process to make sure that there's welfare facilities for us girls. That might just need slightly different facilities to the men.
I see.
But yeah, always been supported. BAM Nuttall are fantastic for supporting diversity in every walks of life.
Can I kind of follow that through? Is when you're working with these bigger companies, do they have sort of diversity or inclusion kind of networks? Do you feel that they've got, you know, people at the higher levels as well, that are kind of, they've got your back, like Grace said, you know, even if there's not that many others in the room, you know that there's support kind of further up, or is that something that is kind of taking time to get there?
Definitely within BAM Nuttall, who I work for, we've got diversity champions. We have working groups for women. We've got working groups for diversity, inclusion, disabilities. We've got working group for everything. There's always that support network. You can either be involved or not be involved. It's fine. They're there to support you. I do think that comes more naturally with bigger companies because they have a lot of people, and they have those people that can not only do their day jobs but also be champions in diversity or champions in women in construction. There's definitely that support network, and we've got great human resources that are always there to help as well.
Fantastic, thank you. So finally, Wanda, I'd just like to ask you the same question about your feeling of being welcomed as a woman in engineering. And you did say that you'd moved from working for a business to be a consultant, and that was kind of a shift with your family life. So yeah, maybe you can kind of talk to that and how you felt. That sort of shift worked for you.
That shift actually worked really well. So this construction industry has changed a lot, as Linus was saying, but there were some obstacles, especially when I started being the only woman on site, and things like that. And I, especially in when I was younger, I always felt like I had to prove myself more than the men on site. I love being on site, but the hours you do on site and everything like this just wasn't for me when I had my first child. There was, and railway, if you can't get your poor ready for the night shift, you can't just leave site, which is exciting. But obviously, when you told your husband that you're not going to be home a whole week and not seeing put your son to bed, it just wasn't for me. So I moved to consulting, and at the time consulting was a bit more welcoming to women, but obviously it has changed quite a lot, and I see it with Linus on site and the people we work with on day to day when we work with site queries and things like that. So it's really nice to see that shift in the industry. And yeah, when I went to consulting, you tend to see more women in consulting, even though still not enough. I think the balance is still not quite there, but like obviously I ran a team and they're all male, but but I think it's just where we are in Derby. It just hasn't come the opportunity to get some females in the team yet. So yeah, it was great, and we are flexible in working, having a family, and the man benefit as well, because if we can do it, they can do it. So they can help with the school runs and things like that, or pickups, or you'll be able to share the things like if this kid's off sick, not just one of you has to take a whole week off. You can share it, which makes obviously your career development better, and it's better for your company as well. So the companies itself are recognizing that's it. And yeah, with I've been so happy with Amey Consulting. I've got a very supportive boss who actually has 3 women in the senior lead team. So with 3, which is really great, working with other principal engineers now, which are females, and getting that support and not being on your own. It's really, really great. Yeah.
Fantastic, thank you. And it's such a good point about it benefiting men as well, and making the workplace more flexible for everybody. Great. I just have one last question, so I'll come to you first, Wanda, just to keep you on the screen, which is, what is the biggest challenge that you face in your role? And we'll wrap up after this question, I think, once we've gone around everyone. Yeah, what's the biggest challenge you faced?
I think sometimes there's just not enough hours in the day, especially when we work towards a line block. But then so time sometimes can be a little bit against you. But then it's really important to have this very big team of all the specialists, because if you want to come up by yourself, that can be quite daunting and overwhelming. But then if you've got specialists to back you up and find a solution as a team, that obviously really, really helps. And because time can, we only get the track at a certain time, and time is definitely an essence. And if we don't get it, we might not get it for another week, month, year to go back into that location. So it can be quite challenging at times.
Fair enough. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think quite a lot of people would say that there's not enough hours in the day. Thank you so much for your contributions today. So Rebecca, same question to you. What's the biggest challenge for you?
That's a very good question. Yeah, certainly at the moment our biggest challenge is the delivery side of things, because whilst we have our own packages design and we've got our own program that we're working to, that has to fit in with the construction timescales. So yeah, like Wanda touched on, you might get a blockade at Christmas and the next one's in 18 months time. So there can be immense amounts of pressure in that sense. But that's why at the minute, certainly, we're quite heavy on recruiting apprentices and grads, because, you know, the only way really for us to deliver this is to spread out that work and get as many hands on deck as possible, really.
Absolutely. So the message is get into engineering. you'll never
Email
be
one of us, because we all need help. Yeah.
Grace, what can I ask you? What your sort of biggest challenges at the moment?
Sure. Yeah, I definitely agree that time is always a challenge with these projects, but I had an idea about something different, which is in engineering, one of the more important things to remember is that it's not your job to know everything. It's your job to know what you don't know. So I would say one of the most challenging things for me to learn in my career is actually to speak up when I've done something wrong or when I've noticed an error. And in my career, that's happened a number of times, but that's the nature of being a human being. So I would say, yeah, I mean, on all of the projects that I've worked on, at some point, there's been some error, like, oh, I forgot to multiply that by 10, you know? And speaking up and saying that is challenging, but it's important. And basically, I say this to say that to be an engineer is not to be right all the time. It's to know when you're wrong, and that's okay.
Fantastic. Thank you. A personal challenge, but important. Thank you so much. And finally, to you, can ask the same question, and then we'll wrap up.
I'd say in the last few months for me, my biggest challenge was a project that I was managing where we were supposed to be demolishing and rebuilding a big 30-metre span bridge in what the girls have mentioned, which is a blockade where we stop all trains. It's been planned in the books for 2 years, and we need to complete our work in that exact time that we've been given of railway closures. So we had 16 days. We need to demolish the bridge, build a new one, get it ready for the trains, hand over for the track team, the signalling team, and the overhead equipment team, and then get it all open ready for the passengers to use it again on a Monday morning. And it's a massive challenge, but it's what gets me up in the morning, and it's what makes the job of being a site engineer or like a site agent really exciting.
Absolutely. God, that sounds incredibly hectic, but incredibly fulfilling as well. I'm just going to share that final slide again. Oops, I've got the wrong thing there. Just to say thank you very much to all of our presenters today. We've had Wanda, Grace, Rebecca and Kunos. And thank you also for joining us. You can find out more about the Meet Your Future events and your career options, opportunities across Greater Manchester, gmats.co.uk. We've put a couple of links in the chat. There's Anne Duffy, who works for BAM, who is up for talking to people about work experience. We've had our great speakers offer, to talk about mentorship and advice, which is absolutely fantastic. So just get in touch with us, and please, if you could share some feedback. I've popped a link in the chat to the feedback form, so we really appreciate it. Thank you everybody for joining us, and have a great day, and we'll see you all soon at another Meet Your Future event.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.